Thank you, Yusuf, and thank you to all the panelists and especially the organizers of this event. It's an amazing job that you've done to put together such a great panel and discuss this. And I hope this work bears great fruit as anticipated. So I can say on the Justice Committee, my role is recent. I've just got on, and there hasn't been, I would say, something as recent because 2019, the election happened, and literally a few months later, COVID-19 happened, and a lot of the focuses has been in regards to COVID-19. But I can tell you a lot of the other initiatives that the government has done that has targeted this, and I'll say right from the beginning was to get a fair representation in Parliament and in Cabinet of faces of Canada. So if we have reflection of at our Cabinet table, in our Parliament itself, that brings people to the table where these things, as Minister Sajjan has discussed, or and my colleague MP Jenny Kwan will speak afterwards, to see people from all different ethnicities, LGBTQ backgrounds, age groups, it helps. It makes a huge difference. What I will say, from October 2018 to March 2019, the government under the Ministry of Heritage did an engagement process. They engaged in over 22 in-person forums. They welcomed approximately 600 people and 443 organizations to find out how to develop Canada's anti-racism strategy. And that was formed in 2019, and it's a 3-year process. It was given $45 million in investment to combat racism and discrimination based on what we've heard from the engagement process, and supported by research of the likes of universities. So this strategy will help complement the existing government efforts aimed at eliminating inequities by focusing on kind of 3 guiding principles: demonstrating federal leadership, as I mentioned earlier, empowering communities, and then building awareness and changing attitudes. One of the first initiatives from that was the Federal Anti-Racism Secretariat. So there's an actual secretariat now created to look at this and to do that analysis on a whole of government approach. So everything from our funding to our every single piece of legislation to every single program. How do we do an analysis to ensure that there is protection of minorities, an analysis of whether any policy, any hiring, etc., how can it help fight anti-racism? How can it prevent racism? And this was given even more funding in this fall economic statement. So Minister Freeland in the fall of 2020 gave another $50 million for this. In this current budget, another $11 million was given to Canada's Race Relations Foundation. So to get more data, as we're hearing from many of the organizations here, this is a way we are able to tackle the problems when we have that data. Another initiative that we did that is more bricks and mortars was the initiative that it's an existing policy but was opened up to more. It's the security infrastructure program that was already there for places of worship, community centers, particularly for those like Asian communities, Islamic communities, Jewish communities, anyone that can have been targets of it, where the government will match up to $100,000 to make them safer for women, make them safer for the elderly, make them safer for those that are visibly targeted, and these are for non-for-profit places, places of worship, community centers. On top of that, I think another very powerful challenge that was given was the 50-30 challenge, which is for governments and the private sector and anyone who engages with the federal government to have 50% of your boards to be gender balanced, so to have both genders on the board, and 30% to be represented from underrepresented communities, to get more visible minorities, to get more underrepresented communities, LGBTQ, Indigenous, etc., on those civil and private sector boards. This will help combat not only racism in the government sector that might potentially or systemically be there, but also in the private sector to enable to tackle those initiatives. So these are very important, and I think there's another kind of elephant in the room that that I feel had a big factor. We all are kind of seeing that has been our neighbor to the south, the leadership there prior, Donald Trump. The words that were, we used to have a history, if you look at it, of naming tornadoes and hurricanes after female names, and people came to, why are always hurricanes named after women? And scientists and those that analyzed those started finally changing that attitude. But scientists were great at viruses. They didn't name a virus after a particular place or an ethnic group, etc. However, President Trump did, and I think that caused a lot of overt racism, things that otherwise would not be expressed. I think that overtness of it spilled over, and unfortunately, we still have more Canadians watch American media than we watch our own media. So that spillover effect has increased, and thus this anti-Asian influx of crime. So we need to work on that. We need to really combat that. I think the fact that we do this analysis and we have a secretariat, that all legislations, including the ones on online hate that Mr. Guilbeault is looking at, and how we formulate that, how do we balance and protect freedom of speech while at the same time being responsible in our communications. So I again want to thank you for putting this forum together and for highlighting and discussing this, because this is the ongoing process. I never forget my professor at UBC, who's a guest professor, said, he was from Vienna. He said, Canada's all watching this multiculturalism experiment Canada is doing, and they're all expecting it to fail. But I don't want it to fail. But I will tell you, you always have to be constantly vigilant to always tweak it, always perfect it, because we're no angels. We all have to always look at it very carefully. And I think that's exactly what you guys are doing and what others are doing. So thank you.